We've all got them. Not literal piles of bones, at least not hopefully, but secrets. Hidden shames, like that one time you tried to give yourself bangs in middle school. We call these skeletons in the closet. But why skeletons? Why not garbage in the basement or laundry under the bed? Why did we choose the most morbid object imaginable to represent our little secrets? Well, today on Phrases Explained, we are opening the door on grave robbers, Victorian doctors, and a literary mystery to figure that out. Let's dig into it. First, let's make sure we're all on the same page here. In modern English, having a skeleton in the closet, or for you UK friends, a skeleton in the cupboard, it means you're harboring a secret source of shame that could ruin your reputation if it were exposed. It's not just any old secret. If you've been secretly planning a surprise party, that is not a skeleton in the closet. A skeleton is negative. It implies a past indiscretion, a crime, or a moral failing that you have successfully hidden away, so far at least. But as viewers of this channel will most definitely know by now, the English language is rarely accidental, and the image this phrase conjures is horrifying. Imagine opening a door in a suburban home and finding human remains. It suggests that the domestic bliss on the outside is hiding death and decay on the inside. Gross! This duality, the perfect exterior versus the rotten interior, is exactly where this phrase comes from. And to find the origin, we have to travel back to a time when people were obsessed with reputation, but also weirdly obsessed with death. Let's head to the 19th century and start exploring some theories. One of the earliest theories regarding this phrase isn't actually about real skeletons, but a fairy tale, specifically the French folktale of Bluebeard. If you don't know the story, it's a nightmare. A wealthy blue-bearded nobleman brings his new young wife to his castle. He gives her the keys to every room but tells her, do whatever you want, but never open the small closet at the end of the hall. Naturally, human curiosity wins. She opens the closet, and what does she find? The bodies of his previous wives. Yikes bikes. While the phrase skeleton in the closet doesn't appear in the original text, the imagery is strikingly similar. Like, pretty much spot on identical, don't you think? It established the cultural trope of the forbidden room in a house that contains the evidence of a person's worst crimes. So it seems like an open and shut origin story for this phrase. However, linguists aren't fully convinced that this is the direct origin. The phrase didn't gain traction until much, much later than the story of Bluebeard. So while Bluebeard sets the mood for the real smoking gun, or smoking bone, I guess, we need to get a little more scientific. I try not to have too much of a bias in these videos, but honestly, this is my favorite theory because it is historically gruesome. In the UK in the early to mid 19th century, medical science was a boomin'. Doctors needed to learn anatomy, and to learn anatomy, you needed bodies to dissect. But the law at the time said you could only dissect executed criminals. Yeah, that's it. The problem? There weren't enough executed criminals to go around. Enter the resurrection men, or as I much prefer to call them, body snatchers. These were people who would sneak into graveyards at night, dig up fresh graves, and sell the bodies to medical schools. Imagine you are a respectable doctor in London. You have a reputation to uphold, but you also have a freshly dug up corpse in your study that you bought illegally at 3 a.m. If the police, or heck, your patients come over, you can't leave that body just out on the table. So where do you put it? Well, you stuff it in the closet, of course. Until the passage of the Anatomy Act of 1832, which allowed for more legal ways to get bodies, many doctors were technically harboring illegal skeletons. It is thus highly probable that the phrase evolved from this literal reality, a doctor hiding the evidence of his illegal research in the cupboard or in the closet. It's the perfect metaphor. The doctor looks respectable on the outside, but open his closet and you find the bones of his crime. Even though we seem to have the origin down cold, forgive the expression, we actually have a little more to discuss here. Because while doctors and fairy tales set the stage, we usually credit a very specific writer with making the phrase go viral. or at least as viral as you could go 175 years ago. In this case, the credit often goes to William Makepeace Thackeray. You may know him as the guy who wrote Vanity Fair. He also wrote The Luck of Barry Lyndon, which got turned into a 1975 movie by Stanley Kubrick. And in 1845, old Billy Thackeray wrote a piece for Punch magazine. He wrote, quote, "There is a skeleton in every house, or is it mine only that has one? You know of what I speak," end quote. Now notice he didn't say closet yet, he just assumes every house has a skeleton. Well, around the same time, we see the phrase appearing in other newspapers and novels, evolving from skeleton in the house to skeleton in the closet or skeleton in the cupboard. It became the defining phrase of the Victorian era, an era famous for being incredibly polite on the surface while hiding massive scandals underneath. And by the mid-20th century, it had become the staple of English language that we know and love today. So whether it comes from Bluebeard's dead wives, body-snatching doctors, or just a witty Victorian novelist, the meaning remains the same. We all have a public face and a private space. The skeleton in the closet reminds us that no matter how perfect someone's life looks on Instagram, or in the 1800s in those society pages, everyone is hiding something. And hopefully yours is just a bad haircut from 2008 and not, something way worse. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the macabre history of language, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm I exist, which is absolutely super. And tell me in the comments, what word or phrase would you like to see me cover next? I'm all ears, so fire away with your awesome suggestions. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. This is Phrases Explained. I will see you again soon. And now if you'll excuse me, I have a body to dispose of.